Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for dialing into our final webinar for the day. Today, we're going to be talking about talent search methods. And if this is new to you, I think it's going to be a bit of an eye-opener because there's a fair bit that you can now do in the Seek platform that will give you really good exposure and control over the candidate marketplace. So we're going to spend a little bit of time on this, and I'm going to assess where you guys are up to in terms of your experience with using the talent search platform, but we'll ask a question a little bit later into today's session. Now, for those of you who haven't joined us for the earlier sessions, we ran two others. One was on becoming a subject matter expert. The other was on advertising principles. Don't worry, we're going to send out a follow-up piece, probably come through tomorrow, I'd say, where we'll give you all the links to the recordings, all the links to the session notes, and if you have any questions, just pass them through to me. But for those of you who haven't met me before, my name is Narelle Stefanac. I'm the National Client Training Manager at Seek, and I cover both Seek New Zealand and Seek Australia. So I've just finished doing a tour of New Zealand in June, where we rolled out these 3 sessions in about a half-day session. So you guys are going to be able to have them at your fingertips to be able to play, replay, rewind, do them again if you wish, or to share them with your colleagues as well. But my background is I've been with Seek for 11 years now, and prior to Seek, I worked in the recruitment industry. So definitely throw any questions that you have at me. Really happy to go off on tangents where you need me to, and really start to flesh out what does the actual sourcing environment look like today, and what can you do to really take control and not have to wait, not just have to sit and wait patiently for candidates to choose you, to read you, to engage with you, to interact with you, to actually give you some more transparency over that marketplace. Now, as I mentioned earlier, these are the 3 subjects that we've covered so far, and right now we're just honing in on talent search methods. So we're going to spend the next hour, it might be a little bit shorter, just depends on how many questions we have and how many examples we sort of go off and show, but we'll spend some time really framing up what it actually is, because there's a number of you who haven't seen it before, but also how do you optimize your skills in this space, because Kiwis are great at being able to search for talent, terrible at converting them. Not all the time, but across the board, if we look at it on a global level, Australians and Kiwis are fairly similar in that we can find candidates, but it's that engagement to convert them into a placement, especially off the back of a headhunting approach. It's actually a little bit more difficult. So I want to spend some time sharing with you some of my headhunting strategies that I used and deployed when I worked in recruitment, and show you how you can apply them to this Seek model as well. So we're going to go through a fair few things today. If you want to ask questions, if I can get you to type them in for me, that would be best. So we've just got so many of you on the line, it'll be so much easier if you can just type away as we go. I'll pause in between each slide and stop throughout the session to answer questions on the fly. But if we're getting really bogged down, I'll park questions till the end so that we can run to time. Also, the handouts for today's session are downloadable right now. So when you find this little red box with a white arrow in it, if you're on a desktop computer, you should be able to click on that. It'll open up and you'll have a handout section. In there, you can download this exact presentation, and it's a PDF. Just download it. You can review it later, print out the bits that are of interest to you. Also, for you who haven't been able to download it for any reason, don't worry, we'll also send it out tomorrow. All right, so let's talk about talent search, because I guess the real challenge that we see, and we see it from doing candidate research, but also doing research with you guys as well, is that you both speak 2 very different languages and you have very different expectations. So it makes it quite complex when we try and pair up the 2 marketplaces. So if you could imagine, candidates sit on one side and they really want to get more and more detailed information out of you, but you can't really put all of it in an ad because it'll be quite overwhelming and candidates won't read it anyway. But then they don't necessarily act on the information you put in there because they're not reading it well enough, or they're not understanding it well enough. So it's sort of this moment where candidates want loads and loads of detail, but then they might apply and they might not hear from you. So they get really frustrated, so that they're on the other side of the fence. It's quite a daunting task of having to go through the job hunting process and physically put yourself out there all the time. On the flip side, you guys are getting irrelevant candidates because they're not reading, or the good ones aren't coming through because they're feeling overwhelmed, or it's just too big of a mammoth of a task. So we really needed to find a way where we could create a world where candidates can give as much or as little information as they like about themselves, and really rich information, things that you guys could value. So things like not only where are they currently living, but where are they willing to move to for the right role? What sort of skill sets do they hold? And not just be able to look at a profile, but also look at the depth of their CV and be able to pass all that information through and be able to search for it as you wish. How much money do they want? Could they be tempted, or are they actively looking for roles? What sort of work type are they after? Are they looking for contract work? Are they looking for full-time work? How much notice period do they need to give? All these sorts of things are really useful, even in that initial sort of fleshing out of who you're going to target. So we created this environment called Seek Talent Search, which basically gives candidates at any given time of the day to be able to present that information out to hirers. So yourselves as a recruiter, you can capture that information, and all you need to do is access it. So then you have a lot more choice. So rather than waiting for the right candidates to apply, you can be proactive. You can go in and just find the ones you want, tap them on the shoulder, headhunt them out of another business. So this is the sort of new environment that we really see taking off. It's about 20% of recruiters use it at the moment. So it's relatively new, and you may fall into that 80% bucket. So we're going to take some time to make sure we get everyone up to speed, get everyone aware of how this marketplace has evolved and what you can do in terms of taking control back. So there's two ways in which you can access talent search. One is free and one is paid. So we'll talk about the standard option. So standard talent search, what we've done is we've created a way for us to be able to use the content in your job ad to be able to look through our talent search platform and find candidates that we think are relevant. And what we do is we use some technology, so data science, to push your ad and remarket it back out to those candidates. But on the other side, we also provide you with the list, right? So you get the list of candidates that have sort of been scooped up, and then you get to refine it. So it's not just working off Seek's data algorithms, which can be a little bit broader than what's in your head. Then what we can do is give you the tools and the research and the refinement capabilities, so you can go in and just say, no, you know what, I only want people from these companies, or only with these skill sets, only if they meet these criteria, and you can put it all in and quickly refine down within about 30 seconds to your needle in a haystack candidates. So that's what standard talent search is, and it sits there and just waits for you to use it, and it's free. It doesn't cost you anything. We do put some credit limits on there just so that candidates aren't being spammed. Okay, we don't want candidates to feel like they're getting inundated with irrelevant opportunities. So we do put some credit limits on there, but I'll tell you how that all works as we go through. The other one, which I just wanted to really flag with you because it won't be relevant for everyone, but we have a new tool which we created just based off demand. So there was a lot of recruiters that were saying, you know what, I don't even want to write an ad. I just want to search. And we've now built a capability. I only launched in April. It's really, really new, but you do have to pay for that. So I'll talk about it throughout today's session, but if every one of you are using the standard talent search, I think that'll be a really good outcome. And there'll be a few of you where you'll say, it's got limitations, I really need more flexibility, and that's where you would clip over to that premium talent search. And the paid option, it varies on the cost depending on how many ads you normally post, what your contract looks like. So you need to speak to your account manager if you want to go down that path. But to make sure that we're all on the same page and we all know what we're talking about, I thought it'd be really important just to frame up what talent search looks like and what are the big core buckets here to make sure that you guys can quickly identify, yep, I've used it before, or no, I haven't. So what it is, it's much like when you do a job search and get a list of short descriptions that meet your criteria and then you can refine it down. Very, very similar, except you two get a list of candidates and their short descriptions, I guess you could say. So what it does is, the very first thing it does is it takes your job title along with a number of sets of content as well, but and the location of your role, and then it sort of goes through our 3.6 million profiles that are actively searchable across New Zealand, across Australia, and across international locations as well. But then it pulls back a set of candidates who are currently residing in the area where you've listed your role. We do give you some flexibilities to attract those who are outside the region but are willing to work there, but ultimately that's the very first cut that you'll receive back in that list. And then you'll be told how many you've received. And if you get 26,000 just quietly, you probably wouldn't want to go through 26,000. It's very rare that you'd ever get 26,000, but it could be up in the thousands. So you still want to be able to refine those candidates as quickly as possible. And I'm going to go through each of these refinement capabilities, show you which ones I use, how I use them, why I use them in the combinations that I do, because you don't necessarily need to use all of them. You can get your perfect candidate just using one. Potentially. So we'll go through how you do it because we want to try and create efficiencies. You know, if it takes too long to go through this, you're never ever going to come back to it again. So I'll show you how to use it, and we'll show both this standard one that I'm showing you now, but I'll also show you the premium one as well, just to see the differences between the two. Then you get the information of the candidate, and it's expandable and collapsible. So you click on this, it gives you more detail about the candidate's profile. But we do force the candidate to only write a short amount of information about each job, and we cap it at maximum 5 roles. So we don't want them to give us war and peace about every role they've ever held before, because we have their CV. So what happens is you only get a little snippet of their work history, and then we have their CV, and if you use any keywords, we pass information out of their CV as well and return it back into your results. So, you know, it's just there to create this sort of tight, relevant, concise little snapshot of these candidates. But, you know, sometimes they give a little bit of really good detail. So I'll show you some examples live as well. And then finally, you get to decide, how do I actually want to connect with these candidates? Now, some of you may not want to headhunt, and that's absolutely okay. The way that I would use this is as a communications platform. So a lot of the time people have asked me, how do I get my job ad to the top of the list? How do I get my job ad, you know, in a job mail and get it sent out to all these relevant candidates? Well, this is probably the way you'd go about it. You click on the send job capability, and what that does is it grabs your ad in isolation and it direct markets out to the candidates that you choose. So you go through, you choose your candidates that you want to market it to. You just hit send job, send job, send job, done. It's a beautiful little piece, and it's all structured up and looks neat, and it goes out to the candidates, and candidates respond. So they can be linked back through to your normal application process and just go through that way. So if you don't like being confrontational and having the sorts of conversations I'm going to coach you on, then that might be more suited to your style. Send message is great. It gives you more power over what message goes out to the candidate. So you might want to tell them why you chose them, why you think they might be relevant for your role, why you think they might be good for your talent pipeline, especially if you're hiring for the future. So thinking about how you would connect with that candidate, what would you tell them, how would you get them to respond to you? Access CV, majority of people use this function only. The main reason for that is because you don't have to wait. And that's, I guess, the purpose of talent search. You see the person, you like the person, you download their CV, you give them a call, and you're done. So there's a real level of immediacy here. So these are the main 5 parts of how talent search comes together at a very top level. With that in mind, I'm going to ask you guys a question. I want to know, I'm going to put a poll up on your screen, so give me 2 seconds. I want to know what experience you've had with that talent search platform. So if you've never even heard of it before until this session, you've heard of it but just never used it, you're currently using the free option, so you go in off the back of your job ad and it doesn't cost you anything, or you actually physically pay to use premium talent search. So we'll see what those results are, and majority of you have voted, so that's great. I'll give you another 3 seconds. Quick. All right, excellent. I'm going to close it. I'm going to put the results up on the screen for you guys to be able to see. Majority of you are actually using the free option, so fantastic. I think we may need to spend a fair bit of time on communicating how you do the search better, how do you do it more efficiently, how do you do your messages better. So I'll spend a fair bit of time on that. And another 40% of you never used it before. So even though we're going to be moving through things fairly quickly, it's pretty self-explanatory. If you feel like you need more coaching post this event, please let us know. We can always get some consultants on the ground to come out and sit with you as well. But there's a fair number of you, 13%, that are actually paying. Wow, you guys are really early adopters. This has only just been launched. Out of interest, I'm curious to know why the guys that are paying for it, what were your main reasons for saying, you know what, standard talent search isn't enough, I needed to go to premium talent search, just so that anyone else who's listening in today can sort of start to define which side of the fence they'll sit in. So just send me in the questions area, just type in why you decided to buy and pay for premium talent search. If you'd do that for me, that would be great. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move back to my presentation while you guys are popping something in there for me, and I'm going to make sure that you guys can see. All right, so while these guys are typing, I'm going to take you through, I guess, the main differences that have come up when we've done training across Australia and New Zealand. What were the main reasons why people were choosing one over the other? So I guess in terms of premium talent search, I'll give you not only other people's perspective, but Seek's perspective as well. One thing that came up is if you're a recruiter and your client says to you, you cannot say anything about who we are, where we're located, what our business is, because this role is super sensitive and we can just not publish it. It's going to make writing a job ad really difficult. So maybe search is a better way to go, because if you can't be explicit in your ad, then candidates aren't going to believe it's a real opportunity. And so the good ones may not apply. The other problem from a Seek perspective is we're a publicly listed company. So if we have one of our senior level roles resign, we cannot be seen to be advertising for that role, because it could do damage to our share price. So those sorts of reasons, the role is super sensitive and we just couldn't do it. So depending on how much of your work would sit in that bucket, majority of people, I would dare say, could probably just get enough value extracted out of standard talent search, because it'd be very few roles. But if you tend to be more on that sensitive side, that's where premium might work better. Also, the other one is when the role's really unique. When I went out and saw Apple in Sydney, they had a role for an at-home advisor, and that's the official title for the role, and it works exceptionally well within their business. The challenge is that it's a very senior technical role for help desk, I guess you could say, but they work from home. So the benefit is from working from home, but the job title doesn't necessarily clearly articulate that. And it sort of gets a little bit confusing. So they might be attracting candidates of the wrong level or looking for the wrong type of role. So where you're constantly advertising, you're thinking, I keep getting the wrong candidates. The wrong ones are applying. It's not that, it's this. And the problem is that candidates come in, they say lots of jobs, and they assume they're all very similar because of the way that they've searched. They've all should be bucketed together. So where you feel like you keep getting inundated with the wrong types of candidates, your role may be unique, and that's where you may need to do it. If you don't care where candidates are, okay, you've got roles, they're hard to find, or candidates are hard to find, you could look anywhere for candidates, but you have to physically post your ad in the local area where the role will be vacant. Then Premium Talent Search allows you to search across our entire platform. So you could search any location across Australia, New Zealand, and just find the candidates that you're after. One good thing with recruiters is if your role is exclusive to you, it means that you can search for talent without having to broadcast to the market that you've got the job on. So that's where it works exceptionally well. The other part is that if you're really contingent at the moment, so you take a job brief along with 6 other recruiters, what you could do is you could say, look, give me the job for a week, give it to me for a day, give it to me for 3 hours, get some level of exclusivity, and then proactively search for talent, because that extra lead time will help you shift your business from being contingent, where you spin your wheels and you place maybe 1/3 of the time, to being more exclusive and you place 90+% of the time. So, that's where that could make a difference if your business model is out of kilter. If you have more contingent-based roles rather than exclusive roles, this could really help you. Also, if your preference is just to search first, mine is, if I never had to post another job ad again, I probably wouldn't, right? It takes time. I'm time poor. I need to be able to speed this process up. So if I could just search for someone, find out if there's an appropriate market size. If I find that I've got way too many choices, maybe an advert would be better, because then I don't have to spend my time trying to convince someone to want to work for us. But if I find that I know it's going to be a difficult role and I want to look at people with lots of different skill sets, then it's just so much easier for me to search. So the main things that have come up, Fiona said, makes such a big difference when targeting the right candidates. Passive as well. Yeah, there's a massive proportion of passive candidates in there. Shane said, Randstad Technologies and NZ pays for it on our behalf. Okay, fantastic. It's always good when your employer pays for it. Sharina says, we use Premium for the speed of access to candidates. Sometimes there are skill sets that I don't want to post an ad due to irrelevant candidates coming through, and I can look at people's skill set before making direct contact. These are all great pieces of feedback, and everyone's going to be different. When I sat down with cash converters in Australia and WA, Western Australia, They said, well, we actually advertised for a role, placed a person, but 1 week before they were about to start, they said, no, sorry, I'm not going to take the job. And then they said, well, damn it, we still need someone to start in a week's time. So what are we going to do? And they went in, they said, well, we'll use Premium Talent Search. They went in, found 8 candidates, sent them all messages. All 8 responded. 3 of them weren't in the local area to where the store was, so they disengaged. The other 5 went through interviews and they placed within the week. Done. It's just the speed. The speed that you can get from it is massive. So think about, and that can happen through standard. It doesn't have to happen through premium, but standard is tied to your job ad. That's the only difference. So play around with it at least and work out which one's going to work best for you. So let's talk about some of this functionality just to give you perspective. There's about 8 million individuals that have an account with Seek. Now, obviously, they're not all Kiwis because there's not 8 million people in New Zealand, so not working anyway. So ultimately, that's 8 million across New Zealand and Australia. Out of that 8 million, there are 5 million who have chosen to set up a profile because it's not mandatory. Okay, you get to choose if you want to have a Seek profile or not. Out of that 5 million, there's more than 3.5 million. It's up to about 3.6, 3.7 million now. It goes up about 180,000 every month. So there's more than 3.5 million searchable profiles across the entire platform. And what we mean by searchable is they haven't turned them off, right? They're saying, I'm happy to be approached. Whereas the other 1.5 million that have a profile, they've said, nope, I've found a job, I'm happy, I'm going to switch my profile off for now, and I'll turn it back on when I'm ready again. So you can't see the ones that have switched it off, you can only access the ones that are searchable. Out of that 3.5 million, there's more than 370,000 searchable Kiwi profiles. So these are people who are currently residing in New Zealand. So that gives you some idea of the sheer scale. That's about 1 in 6, I think it is 1 in 6 working Kiwis. It's a fair amount. And that's what you have access to, not only the Kiwis, but also people from the entire platform who are willing to relocate to the locations that you're advertising in. So that's what we're talking about when you go through both the standard talent search, but also the premium talent search. Now, candidates give us a bucket load of information. I guess that's the real point of difference between this and a lot of other search capabilities. They give you their resume, and their resume is extremely rich, and we parse information out of the resume when you put in your keyword refinements. We also get lots of rich information about their career motivations and desires. So how much money do they want? What sort of skills do they have? How much notice period do they need to give? And then you just get to choose how you want to connect with them. So it's just a way of being able to take Seek out of the game and give you guys a hell of a lot more transparency over who these candidates are. So definitely think about utilizing it if you're not already. Okay, so we're going to spend some time on search, and I think search is important. For those of you who are using premium talent search, no doubt you've probably had some training with Gemma or one of our other consultants who focus in on the product specialization. And there'll be some overlap with what we've covered there, but I'll give you my take on it. Ultimately, there's a whole bucket load of refinement tools that you can use, but the most powerful refinement tool is the keyword filter. And the reason for that is because you can use Boolean. Now, Boolean style searching methods enable you to search for a string of different things all at once. And you have to sort of get the theories of some little mathematical equations to sort of get your head around it. So if you'd never liked maths growing up, it might take a little bit to get your head around, but you'll pick it up pretty quickly and it'll become second nature to you. But ultimately, you could search for skills, you could search for companies, you could search for different roles, a whole range of different stuff. So I'm going to step you through each of the main commands that exist within Boolean search on Seek. So the 3 main commands are and, or not, and then the other capabilities are speech marks and brackets. Now, what happens with these is that you have to use capital letters for these commands to work. If you don't use capital letters, we'll just treat them as normal words and we'll search for them. So definitely make sure if you're using and, or not, they have to be in capitals. All right, I'm going to step through each one to give you an example of how they come together. So what and does, and makes sure that both words exist. So you could have a string of 2 words, you could have a string of 10 words, but if you use the word and in between all of them, it means that all of those words have to exist in someone's profile or CV for those candidates to be returned in the results. And so with this example, Telstra and Optus, it'll go, okay, well, Matthew is the operations manager at Telstra and was a systems engineer at Optus. So both Telstra and Optus appear, so therefore he comes back in the results. If he only had one, wouldn't come through. Same with Annabelle as well. Optus and Telstra both exist. Okay, so that's what and does, and it helps you narrow down really quickly. I love and, because and's a great way of being able to shorten that list of candidates. Or is great, or is good when you need more flexibility. You want someone who's worked at CBA, well, ANZ, BNZ, Kiwi Bank, IBM. You could use all of these terms, but you could put or in between them, and then they can return the candidates. So they could work at multiple, or they could work at one. And so James has worked at Optus as a business analyst, whereas Jonathan has worked at Telstra and Optus. So it gives you a greater set of candidates, but those that are relevant for you. Now, the not function I rarely use, and the reason why I rarely use it is because it can get a little bit too prescriptive. So if you're looking for a programmer, not help desk, because you're getting way too many help desk people in your results. The reality is that a programmer could have been a help desk officer 10 years ago, and they may have help desk somewhere written in their CV. You will exclude them because of that if you use not. Where I would typically use it is when you have conflicting industries but with the same term. Okay, so if you're going to be a building architect, then you're not going to be necessarily an IT solutions architect. So in that instance, I would say architect, not solutions architect. And that's how I'd use it differently, because they are two opposing industries. So in that instances, it could work rather than in an industry where someone could have progressed from one role to the next. So definitely be cautious when you use not, because we're not just passing their profile, we're also going through every piece of content that's going on in their CV as well. Quotation marks. I love quotation marks, and if you use them well, it renders really good results. Now, often we have multiple words that we want to use when we're refining, and if you want to have the words as a phrase, as a complete whole, you need to put speech marks around them, because if you don't, what happens is that we look at those words in an or capability, so debt or collection. So we want to look at both of those. Either of those could exist. And so we pull out debt, so one's in one paragraph, we pull out collection, that's in a job title in another paragraph. It doesn't necessarily give us relevance. So when we use it with the speech marks around it, what it does is it looks for them as a cluster. So those two words have to sit side by side in that order together for them to render through. And therefore you'll get probably fewer candidates that will come through, because you're only looking at that complete phrase in that order. Brackets I love, but this is where your strings start to get a little bit more complicated. So what you're doing is you're telling the system to look for multiple things, and within each lookup, it's doing multiple things as well, right? So that's why we need to use brackets. So to best explain it, we could use our Telstra or Optus example that we used earlier. So we want that thing to happen first. We want to find candidates who have got either one of these in their CV or profile. And we also want to find people who have been an executive or a manager before. So we don't just want Telstra or Optus, we also want executive or manager. And if there's a combination of either of those things happening, then we want the candidates to be returned. So you can see Joshua's a technical writer, sorry, it's just coming up now, technical writer at Telstra, and has been a development manager at Bupa. So the word Telstra appears and the word manager appears. So one of those two have appeared. Simon's been a strategy executive at Optus. So one of those two words appeared, just happened to be in the same role. So it gives you an idea of how those things link together. I'll show you some more complicated ones in a second because we're going to go out and do a live search. But key thing is here, use the Boolean. If you want more practice on Boolean, there is a video for this. I'll show you where to access that now, but you can play back the video even whilst you're in the platform. So let's go out to this little one that I set up earlier. It's a fake job, so don't worry, we're not going to really send anything out to candidates because it's just a test environment. But what we're looking at here is we've taken the job title, and so this job is posted in our testing environment. The job title is Senior Java Developer in Auckland. And so we are looking for people who have held a combination of Senior Java Developer in a string. So you can see some of the best candidates that map first have got that complete phrase and it's their current role. We then also look at previous roles. We look at combinations of words as well. So we might look for Senior Java, we might look for Java Developer, we might even look for Senior Developer. So we'll look for combinations, and then we'll also look across the content of the ad and the content of the resume as well. But just to give you a bit of an essence of how it sort of comes together, we do look at those multiples. So someone who's a senior developer may not have Java experience, and that would be a problem for me because Java is pretty critical to the role. So I want a Java developer, not just a senior developer. So the first thing I would do in my refine results is I would actually put in Java developer. I really want to get that refined down. So if I put in, type it correctly, Java developer, and then I hit search, what will happen is I'm going to look at that complete phrase. I only want Java developer in that order that way, then I have 280 candidates returned. So this might be the list that I start with. Okay, so that's the very first cut, but 280 still seems like a lot. I don't know if I'd want to go through 280. I do like to headhunt though, and I know which businesses provide really good candidates, and taking Java developers out of a banking environment tends to work really well for us. So in here, I would also say that I also want them to have worked at a bank. Now, the bank could be, and I'd put it in here because they don't have to be working at a bank now. Okay, if I wanted them to be able to work at a bank now, I'd just choose industry and choose banking and credit and go from that way. But they could have worked at a bank historically. So I'm going to name the banks. I want them to be ANZ or BNZ or Kiwi Bank, pretty sure it's one word, or Westpac. And you know what, just for the fun of it, I'll put IBM, right? Because that's another really good business that we like to headhunt out of. So I can put in a whole heap of them, right? You can see how this is becoming a little bit more complex, but ultimately I'm saying Java developer has to happen and one of these have to happen. Okay, one of these banks or businesses have to happen. And so when I return it, I go from 280 down to 78. I'd probably start there. So ultimately at this point in time, that's when I would actually go through the process and start clicking on their profiles, reading a bit more detail and deciding if they were the right candidate for me or not. Now, there's a bit of detail that we give you. We tell you their name, we tell you their position, their work history, how long they've been there for, when they last updated their profile, how much money they want, if they've disclosed it. Candidates don't have to, it's not compulsory, but you can click on them and get more details about what they've been doing. You can see here we've scraped out of their CV the actual suburb that they're living in as well. So wherever we can, we'll scrape additional information for you. Candidates can keep it really lean at this point, or they can be more complex, and that's why putting in details in this keyword field that you'll be looking for, maybe you want someone with a master's or an MBA or something like that, that's how you can refine it down. But once you're here, so that's pretty much all I use. I use the keyword field to do Boolean, and I typically get the majority of my candidates that I want here. And then I would start shortlisting. Going through 78 profiles is pretty easy and quick for me to do. And then I can just shortlist by going, yep, I like this one, I don't like the second one, I like the third one, don't like the fourth one, like the fifth one, and so on and so forth, right? You can go through this process. But ultimately, once you've created a shortlist of all the candidates that you like, at the top, it says shortlisted. And then you can decide what you want to do with them. And I like to shortlist people first because I might go, all right, I've only got 1,000 credits. You can see that at the top of the page. I'm just going to open it up for you now. And it cost me 25 credits to be able to send them the job. It cost me 75 to send them a message because it's a lot more higher touch. It cost me 150 to download their CV. So I can either just download all these people's CV, because you could download 5, you could download 7. But you might say, well, I only want to download 5 and then I'll still have some credits left over. What do I want to do with them? Do I want to send them a message or just send them the job? And then you can pick and choose. But it forces you to be really selective with the candidates that you're going to connect with and be really thoughtful of what messages you're going to send them and how you're going to interact with them. So if you find that this is too restrictive and you need more credits, that's when you probably need to go to a premium option, but the credits are free and they only last for the life of your ad. So if you don't use them, they disappear and there's no way to transfer them over. So it's just a matter of getting in and using them. We've had a question from Gemma. Are you able to confirm that if we access a candidate's CV, that they get a message to confirm that we have done this? Yes, they do. And I'll show you the comms that they get sent as well. So we'll loop back to that in just a couple of seconds for you, Gemma, just so you can see what the candidate actually experiences and what you should do about it as a result as well. But great question. So the other thing I'm going to show you is, even though I like to Boolean search, you might like to do search in lots of different ways. So I'll go back to all again. The other thing that you might want to do is, and if you do want those tips on Boolean, click on Boolean search tips underneath the search box there, and it takes you out to a new page that has all the tips and a video of what I just went through. So that should pop up in a second. There we go. So there's a video, it's hosted on YouTube. You can play it off any device. So that's all accessible to you, but it's basically just here under your search box where it says Boolean search tips. You click there. So really good gauge. Industry, this one's good if you know that you want to take someone or headhunt someone from an industry or from a company that's large and they're in a particular industry set. And the reason why I say large, because we've only mapped 65% of companies back to an industry so far. We've still got another 35% to go. So not everyone will come up in the initial cut, but a lot of the big ones have been done. So like I said, if you're going under banking and credit, they would come up. Financial services, you could go through and choose out what you're after. So financial services, banking and credit, and then it would refine it down to those. Industry will only take their current company, and candidates don't nominate it. It's actually, we do it ourselves. So the reason for that is, we had it even in our business. We said to our IT guys, what industry do you work in? And they said IT. We asked our sales guys, what industry do you work in? And they said sales. I think people align their own functional role into an industry, not necessarily the industry of the employer. And what most people, when they're recruiting, when they're looking for someone, they're looking for the industry of the organization that they're currently working for. So we've taken it out of the candidate's control and we've mapped organizations back to an industry, and these are industries, not classifications, so they're slightly different. So play around with them if you want to check them out, but it's only on their current employer. Last updated, I rarely use this one, and the main reason is because I don't have to recruit often. It might only be once a year, every 2 years, something like, depends on the turnover. But if you're in here all the time, fine, go to profiles updated within the last month, because you already know the candidates, you already know what strings you use, you operate in a niche area and you're in and out, you just want to see who's updated recently. I do it that way. Otherwise, this isn't necessarily informative, because there's a lot of passive candidates in here that they may not be updating their profile, but they may be approachable. So don't just rule candidates out just simply because they haven't updated their profile for a while. Salary, if you have restrictions on what you can pay, just move the salary band. Not all candidates have to disclose what their salary is, so just bear that in mind. You might be ruling candidates out who haven't gone to the effort to disclose what their salary expectations are. But if you only want to deal with people who have clearly communicated that they're looking within your salary band, then I'd use it. Work type is great. You can multi-select if you like, or if you know it's a contract role, it's really important. That's where I'd probably use it in conjunction with my Boolean. So you can see I've gone down to 37 people from 78 people before. So if it was a contract role, this would be a really great feature to use. Just say done to that one. Right to work in New Zealand. We're going to change this one, and the main reason for that is because we don't think it's entirely accurate. Even though if we put in, do you have the right to work in New Zealand, a lot of people answer it appropriately. There's also some that still don't. Okay, they say, oh, I don't, but I really want a job there, so I'll just say yes so I can get through. So what we want to do is we're probably going to change this to, what is your current residency status? And we'll give them a whole heap of options, and it might be that they're a Kiwi resident, they're an Australian citizen, they're on a 457 visa, all of these sorts of things. They'll be able to nominate and say what they are. Now, we've also had a question, Jane's asked, if they don't disclose a salary, do they show up anywhere? Yeah, they still show up on the initial cut. So you can see this one with, I've refined it down. So let me see if there's another one here. So Kapil V hasn't disclosed a salary, so they still come through. But if I went in and I changed it to salary maximum expectations of 100K, that person would disappear. So we want to just be mindful that only people, if you use the salary filter, it will remove people who have not included salary. But if you want to still see them, you want to see everyone with 100K, so you get the right cut first and you exclude the ones that want more. And you also want to include people that haven't specified salary. You can check that as well. So it goes from 12 to 26. But then you'll get a mix of people who are within your band and those who are willing to be flexible. All right, work type. I've done that one. CV. Sometimes if you know all you want to do is download someone's CV, that's the only thing you want to do, then just click on here, only show profiles with CV, and that way you don't waste time looking at people who only want you to message them. So what happens is we have a whole range of different privacy settings, and candidates can say, look, I'm happy for someone to send me the job or send me a message, but I don't want them to just be able to access my CV without me knowing about it. So they put a blocker on, they use a privacy setting that withholds their CV from you. So it's about 15% of all candidates across our search platform have that setting, but the other 85% have, don't mind. They're happy for you to access them however you like. But even in this short list, if I uncheck that, there was one that didn't have it. So I'll show you what it looks like. Let's see if we can find them in this list here. So it should be coming up on your screen in a second, but basically it says CV private, or it might say no CV. We're playing around with different language on these buttons, but ultimately it means that no, they don't want you to access their CV, but you can send them the job or send them a message and then they can respond to you and give you their CV manually. So it's just a way of giving candidates still exposure, but they don't have to give you everything. But if all you want is a CV, make sure you check that little box. The last one is location, and I love location because even though your role might be in Auckland, this might be a really difficult role to resource for. It might be highly competitive. It might be that there's just no talent available in the localized area, and you really need to be able to headhunt from different locations. So you might be on an executive search pattern of sourcing talent from within New Zealand or even overseas. But what would be really helpful is to know who actually wants to move to Auckland anyway. And so if you say include profiles willing to relocate or commute to Auckland, it'll then bump it up from 26 to 97. So now all of a sudden we've got additional people. So if you click on this one, so Christopher, he's currently based in Asia Pacific region and needs to give 4 weeks notice. So there you can see where they're actually based as well. But this is really helpful if you're wanting to try and target candidates that may not be residing locally right now, but are willing to relocate to the area where your role is. Just helps broaden the profile. So that's how I play around with it. The one thing I'm going to show you before we go into how you actually access it, I'm going to show you how it sort of looks from a candidate's perspective. Actually, let me see if I can log out of this one. I'm going to show you with Seek from Premium Talent Search perspective because there's a few little pieces of different functionality in Premium that would be helpful for you. So I'm just going to log back in. Here we go, employer site. I'll go into my test account so that you guys can see the Premium environment. But Premium does give you extra pieces of functionality. So little things like where we've got the industry button, we also have an additional button to say company. So it tells you that you can actually search by a particular organization. So when you go into Premium Talent Search, we don't know which job you're trying to search across. So we have to give you 2 search engines. The first search engine is for you to frame up what you want to search for through the really shallow profile. Okay, so not the CV, just purely through the profile. So what word combination will render you the most appropriate candidate? So it depends on the role, right? If you've got a really specific role and you know candidates would only hold that job title, they wouldn't hold anything else, just use that job title, absolutely fine. But if you're looking for someone in sales, they could be a sales rep, a sales executive, an account manager, a relationship manager. They could be a combination of different job titles that you'd be interested in. So what would be the most common word that they would have? Probably sales. And you can choose if you want to search Australia or if you want to search New Zealand. You have the toggle between the two countries. So if I toggle over to New Zealand, I can choose a country or an area breakdown now, or I can just search all of New Zealand first. So if I say sales, there's 57,000 matches. I sort of want to move through these pretty quickly. So in sales, I might want someone who has an MBA, just because I'm being, fairly precocious. I want someone that's really good at what they do, and I just want to have a look at what companies have the most. Okay, Vodafone, Fonterra, Telecom, HDFC, ANZ, fantastic. Do I want any of these? And that's the really good thing about this filter. And so you might say, yeah, I want all of those, Vodafone, Telecom, because I know telecoms changed names now, but people might still have it in their resume that way. Also, you might type in here census, okay, and then it'll look for census, and then you can click on census, and then you can say done, and then see how many pull through. You've only got 15. So all of a sudden, you've been able to find from 57,000 down to your top 15 candidates. And the other thing that we do is we tell you how likely that candidate is going to be to respond to your approach. And we use a lot of data science to map that out. So we look at other candidates like them with a very similar profile, and we look at not only the individual's behavior, but candidates like them, what their behavior is, and then we set an approachability signal. They're in fact 5 times more likely to respond to any connection method that you send them. So whether it's a send job, send message, or access CV, when you contact them, they're 5 times more likely, based on their behavior that we see online, to be able to respond with you. The other thing that we look at in building out that signal is candidates are creatures of habit. So what they do is a lot of candidates will change jobs every 2 to 3 years, right? We see a pattern going on. And if a candidate's coming up to the same time period that they've changed jobs, so say every 3 years, if they're coming up to their 3rd year in their current role, we turn on this signal because we know they're going to be hungry for their next opportunity. So there's little things that we can look at in terms of their behavior internally over history, and look at predictive analysis as to how likely they will be to respond with you. And we also look at their own behavior online and their behavior of other people like them. And that's how we sort of define their approachability. So these are the 2 real differences here. The other difference is that you get the way that the credit system works in a premium setting is if you have 10 ads a month, then you would get 10,000 credits across those 10 ads, right? So that's in your standard option. But when you pay for premium, we double it. We go, okay, well, you get 20,000 credits because you're paying for it, and you can use them on any which way you want. So you still have your 10 ads, but ultimately, if you don't want to search against any of those ads, you don't have to. If you want to search against the ads and apply your credits just to 3 ads out of the 10, you can do that too. So there's lots of little things that you can do with premium that you just can't do in the standard environment. But that's the main differences that you'll see come out of that space. All right, I'm going to wrap up and give you guys some ideas of how to engage these candidates. So it's great to know that you can connect with them, but if you are going to connect with them, what do you do to make sure you can convert them? Because there's nothing worse than spending some time finding great people and thinking, wow, these guys are fantastic, if you don't actually convert them into a placement. So we're going to talk about that as well. Jane said, if they don't disclose a salary, do they show up anywhere? Oh, sorry, I asked that one. And Sharina's asked, does the credit balance replenish each month? Yes, it does. If you buy ads in a pack, however, the pack is valid for 6 months. So your credits would be for a 6-month period. So that's the only difference. All right, so in terms of engagement, when you guys are connecting with candidates, this is all the credits that would happen in a standard environment. You get 1,000 credits and you can use them in any which way. The cost to connect with candidates is the same across both standard and premium. But I just wanted to put that in there so you guys have it later on. If you are going to send the job to a candidate, this is what it would look like. It's an automated email. So you click send job, and ultimately you say send, and then the candidate receives this. And I've used Randstad. I know we've got Randstad on the phone today, so it's not real. I've made it up. It's only a mock-up, guys, so don't panic. But it says, "Hi, Justin. Randstad saw your profile on Seek and thought you may be interested in the job. Here's the job title. Here's the location. Here's our brand." So if you use a standout or a premium ad format, your brand appears. So it's beautiful from a brand marketing perspective. And then you click View Job. And it's a way for them to go straight through the natural processes of application. If you post ads via the Seek website, so you don't do it through your own system, you actually physically come into the Seek website to do it. When candidates apply, we tell you if they've just applied from the job ad or they've applied from your approach. So we'll say you sent them the job or you sent them a message, and then they've come through and applied as a result. So we start to give you some analysis around how successful that actually is. And this was a question that we had earlier. So what do the candidates actually see when you download their CV? We don't actually show you when you go and download their CV. We just say, which email do you want us to send it to? And you simply type in your email address and it's there. But what the candidates do receive is this notification. "Hi, Lloyd. This is just a note to let you know Randstad accessed your Seek profile while searching for candidates for the product manager job. They now have a copy of your CV and your contact details. Kind regards, the team at Seek." So we really try to make them aware that, yes, you have their details, but there's no expectation that you'll be in contact with them. But this is a perfect opportunity for you to close the loop. Okay, it's just like a dating website, I'd treat it. So if you go, maybe not even a dating website, maybe just like going out on a date. So if you go out with someone for the first time and they get your phone number and they say they'll call you and they don't call you, why not? What's wrong with you? What's wrong with me? So you sort of have that moment of, well, why aren't they calling? And it's the same thing. They know that you've looked at their profile, you've physically gone to the effort to download their CV, you have their details. Why aren't you calling? And you need to close it off. You need to just send them a message, send them an email, give them a call, do something to say, "Hey, we downloaded your details, but you're not quite right for this role, but we'll keep you in mind for something if anything else comes up." So, just make sure you close it off. It goes a long way with candidates. With send message, this is just an example, but I'm going to show you some others that you shouldn't do, because these are real summaries or real messages that have been sent out to candidates that have had no response. And the reason why they don't get responses is because they're too vague. So, the first one here, imagine you've got a profile on Seek, you haven't updated it for 3 months, no one's been in contact with you, this is your first approach, and you get 400 emails a day, and then all of a sudden you see this random one say, "Hi there, I'd love to chat to you about an opportunity, cheers." It's really weird. You sort of go, okay, well, who are you? What do you want? Why did you choose me? What's the role about? It's not enough depth. And so candidates go, no, I'm not going to contact you. You're asking me to do all the work. So we want to be able to set it up so that the candidates feel like you've done enough to validate why you're approaching them. And this is what we need to work on. We need to really get some meat into our messages to be effective, because whatever you write, you should be able to transcribe into a conversation that you would have with them, peppered with some questions as well. So this was one that was written. It's not how I would necessarily write one, but it did get a response. Okay, and the only reason why I say I wouldn't write it this way is because I like to go to a lot of detail, and I would actually go through and highlight a lot more reasoning behind why I would be approaching them. But it worked, and it can be as simple as this if that works for you, and I'll show you a more complex one in a moment. Hope you're well. I found your details on Seek, and I was wondering if you're interested in a new career opportunity as a product manager for an international technology company based in Auckland. Please have a look at the job description, and I look forward to hearing from you. Many thanks. So the good thing about this one is that it flags lots of things. It sort of tells you where I found your profile in the first place. It also is very conversational in its tone. So you could read that, you could talk to that if you're on the phone, and that's how it should feel. It should feel very relaxed. It tells you what the role is, what sort of company, what industry they're in, where they're based, and then it gives this implied call to action. Look at the job description, and I look forward to hearing from you. So it gives you direction on what you need to do next as a candidate. And with that, they're going to get a response. So this works fine. I've gone and written one which is a mock-up, but when I did that senior Java developer example, I looked at candidates that were also willing to relocate and that held an MBA. And what I did was I came across a candidate, and his name was Henry. And Henry was living in Sydney but willing to relocate to Auckland for the right opportunity. He held an MBA. He also held a whole number of other skill sets that I thought were really interesting, and that's what made him stand out to me. He hadn't updated his profile for 12 months though, so I guess there was concern there that maybe he wasn't looking anymore. Maybe he wasn't willing to move anymore. Maybe his thought process had changed. Maybe he'd gotten a job in between. So I really wanted to give him the opportunity to just start a piece of communication with me. So I've taken on a bit of a persona and I've written this one out for you. So I'm the executive technology consultant at an IT recruitment agency. Hi Henry, my name is Narelle Stefanac. I'm the executive technology consultant at IT Rec. I've discovered your profile while discovered your profile on Seek while searching for a senior Java developer position with Accenture based in their Auckland head office. I understand that this would be a move for you. And Accenture have specifically indicated that they are looking for the best candidates and will pay relocation costs to get the right talent into their team. Your extensive experience with J2EE, Spring, Hibernate, and Java stood out, as we are specifically looking for these technical skills. Your MBA qualifications will also position you well for future career advancement within the organisation, with 80% of Accenture's executive team holding an MBA. It appears you haven't updated your profile for a while, so I'm keen to know if you're still interested in considering opportunities, and if so, what types of roles or projects would interest you. We've included a link to the position description below. Once you've reviewed the opportunity, please call me on this number so we can discuss if this is the right move for your career. I look forward to partnering with you. Best, Narelle. So that's how I would go about it. And the reason for that is because candidates are, one, skeptical of recruitment agencies and being approached. They don't believe that it's a real opportunity. So because this is a private message, I can communicate who the employer is. I can communicate where they are, and I can communicate a lot more about why I am interested in them. Okay, so I'm not just contacting you because I think you'd be great for the job. I'm contacting you because you have these skills, and I think that you'll have great opportunity for career advancement, which is important to you. So really trying to flag those, and then I'm a lot more direct. I want you to call me because I've gone to all this effort to write a great message. So, and there's an assumption that we are going to partner together, whether it's for this role or for something else, I don't care, but I need to create a partnership with you. So that's how I go about writing it. When you pick up a phone and you're contacting someone for the first time, it's actually the same conversation. So if you don't want to write a tailored message, I would still have the same conversation. Hi, it's Narelle. I'm the executive technology consultant at IT Rec. I saw your profile on Seek. I was looking for this role with Accenture, but they're based in Auckland. You mentioned in your profile that you're willing to relocate here, but you haven't updated your profile for a while. So are you still interested? I just pepper it with questions. And it's the same thing. And then you could qualify on the way through. Yes, I am still interested. Okay, well, tell me a little bit more about that. Do you have family here? What's the reason for wanting to move? Because I've particularly like your skill set around these areas, blah, blah, blah. And you might not be aware, but 80% of Accenture's executive team hold an MBA. So I thought this would be a perfect career step for you. So what are you looking for? So you can again open up the doors. Now, if you had someone and they're based locally, you just invite them in to have that conversation. But the reality is it should be conversational enough that you can repurpose this message into a conversation over the phone and headhunt that way. But you have to showcase what caught your eye. When you looked at their profile and you decided, yep, they look great, why? And then put that into your message. Really, really simple. And it's just that second paragraph. That's why. That was my why factor. All right, so I'm going to wrap up with how to access. So if you post directly to Seek, super easy. You sign in, put your username and password in. You then look for your ad, and against it, you'll see these 500 matches. And when you see 500 plus matches, it might only say 178 matches, whatever it might be. But you click on that, it takes you through to the platform. Now, if you use Broadbean, JobAdder, AdLogic, they have built technology to integrate with Seek's platform, so you don't need to leave your environment. I'm going to show you JobAdder first. So JobAdder is great. What they've done is you log in, you find your job ad, but against where your job ad is listed in the line listing, it also has this little blue logo, Seek logo. If you click on that, that's a direct hyperlink into our talent search platform out off the back of your job ad. That'll get you in, you can search whatever, but the other functionality that they've built is that they've actually got this download CV bit as well. So you click on download CV and it goes straight into your system. It doesn't have to be emailed to you. With AdLogic, it's a very similar process. You find your job ad. You could do it in two different ways. So I've just put both options up on the screen. But ultimately, against each line ad that you have, it tells you with this little link, seek profile matches, 0 of 25,000. Seek profile matches, 0 of 14,000. That means you've downloaded 0 of a potential 25,000. So click on the link, go through and start searching, and it'll take you through the process. Broadbean, I know these are really small for your screens. These were the best ones we could get from them, but ultimately you log in and where they have what job boards you've posted the ad to. So when you're on your job ad, it'll say board and it'll have all of the different job boards that you've posted your ad on. Then ultimately off to the right-hand side of Seek, it says search Seek profiles here. That's the hyperlink. Click on it, you're in. Now, for everyone else who doesn't post ads directly to Seek, you post it in your own system. You might be using Taleo or Fast Track or one of your own custom-built platforms. Then you need a separate way to access it. And you need to speak to your Seek account manager. We've created this platform called Seek Access. And you just need to pick up a phone, call your account manager, and they need to qualify that you definitely haven't got the other access points, because if you do, it sort of screws everything up. But if you don't, then they'll give you a URL address where you register yourself. You can register yourself, you can register everyone in your business. Everyone can have an access code, it doesn't matter. And then what happens is you get this access code and it's unique to you. So you write this access code and you make sure you remember it. You'll also have a username and password that you can log in to the normal Seek, like other advertisers do off the homepage. But ultimately, you'll have that username and password and this Seek access code. The access code needs to be, when you go and write your ad in your system, down the very bottom, type in that access code, because what that does is it tells Seek this ad belongs to you. So we now know who it belongs to, not just your company, but to you. And we put it into the platform. So when you log in with your username and password, all of your ads are just sitting there waiting for you to search against them. And the other thing we do is we send you out a trigger email saying, hey, don't forget to access the system. So you click on that pink button and it'll take you in, and then you can search like normal. So that's a little bit of a workaround. We've had to build this external platform so that we can try and get information through the systems. So it's a little bit more laborious, but ultimately once you've set up your code, it's just a matter of dropping that code into every one of your ads. So definitely speak to your Seek account manager if you want to get on board with that. And again, it doesn't cost you guys anything. It's just, there's functionality out there. You may not be using it just simply because you've never known about it before. So guys, if you can do that, if you can think about how talent search can help you, how it's going to give you more control so you don't have to wait for candidates to apply to your roles. You can actually go and handpick the talent that you want. Get in there, play around with it, see where those candidates are, see how you can start building out really robust talent pipelines. That's the main thing I want you guys to take away from today, because the world has evolved. The whole idea of using Seek as a job posting function, you're really only getting half the value out of us. We're really an employment marketplace where you can go in and extract candidates out that are really relevant to you so that you can place them into the roles that you want as quick as you possibly can. So I'm happy to stay on the line for anyone that has questions. If you have them, type them in for me. Otherwise, I will let you go. I know it's late in the afternoon over in New Zealand. So thank you again for joining us, and good luck with your talent sourcing strategies for the remainder of the year. Thanks, guys. Getting a few thanks in there. So if you do have a question, keep typing away. I'll stay on the line, make sure I answer them before you head off. All right, doesn't look like we've got any questions for this afternoon, so I must have done such a fabulous job taking you through everything. Thank you again so much for joining us, and good luck for your talent sourcing strategies for the remainder of the year. Thanks, guys.